Welcome back to the Generational Rundown, everyone. So
Hello.
excited. We have a special guest with us today, Lisa Dixon, the most amazing, my personal hairdresser here in Los Angeles. And I'm so excited. Thank you so much for coming today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So we're doing this whole month of women who have had their own businesses, and we're ending with Lisa, who's been wonderful, to Alexandra. How we want to get started is basically to talk about how you guys met and then go back to where it all started for you, Lisa, and how you
Okay,
became your own business owner.
Yeah.
great.
So I would say it's funny because Lisa's now like one of my bestest friends in LA. And it started because my realtor at the time, when I first moved out here, Leslie, was a mutual friend. She was my realtor, and I started texting her like, what's a good hairdresser? What's a good doctor? And so she gave me all these recommendations, and she recommended Lisa. And so I was like, okay, perfect. Because Leslie, she knew this what's good in LA. She had great hair. I'm like, I'll go to Lisa. And I went, and it's so funny because in the short time I've known you, I've had like 4 hair transformations. And I was like
Amazing. Great
amazing.
answer.
I was like light, and then I was like, I want it to be even better. It wasn't like as light as I wanted. And she gave me a smudge root. I had the best highlights. Like I remember looking at myself when I first moved to LA, like every day I'd wake up and be like, oh, it's so pretty. It was like a icy blonde, and I just loved it. And then I was like, you know what? I want to go dark again one day randomly. And Lisa's like, if you go dark, gotta stay dark for a while. And I was like, okay. So I did that, and it was a beautiful brunette, and I loved it. And then one day, being me, I was like, I want to go light again. And somehow she brought it back, and it's the most low maintenance, beautiful bright blonde.
Perfect.
And all the tips she's given me about don't shower with hot water, using a purple shampoo. I'm like, it's amazing.
And she
That's
gave the
great.
best haircut. You gave the best haircut to my husband. He loved the way you did the haircut. It was
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
It's
It
great
says
when I have good
a
models.
Yes. And then we've gotten the hair extensions, and Lisa does all my red carpet looks. And I still have that one photo saved that she sent me. You sent me, Lisa, with like the braids, and I still have that because I want to do that whenever I'm getting on the carpet next. But you've done all of my perfect looks, and it's
I
just so
love
much
it.
working together and creating these like visions for when I do the red carpets.
Well, it's fun. It's fun to dress up. It seems like we rarely have the opportunity to do that, but you get to do it a lot.
I know. I
It's like
love
getting
that.
married every day.
I
Yeah.
know. I know. And then we went to an amazing Ding Tai Fung restaurant, Mom. We have to take you next time you come. It was
Okay.
incredible. But yeah, no, I want to hear, because Lisa, you're from Utah originally, and you weren't originally a business owner even in the hair space. I think you said you were in corporate for a while. So take us back to that.
So I did the traditional need to go to college, trying to find what I wanted to do. And I mean, college was a lot of fun, but at some point, I just had too many interests. And my mom's like, you need to get out and work. You need to kind of narrow it down and figure things out. And so I moved to California, I moved to San Francisco, and I worked in a couple different industries. And again, I was good at what I did. I enjoyed it, but it just after a few months, I was like, not that interested. So I decided to go to hair school, which my mom wanted me to do right out of high school. And it was the best thing I ever did. It incorporated everything I learned in school: counting, design, architecture, business, uh, doing my own payroll taxes, doing all the things to run a business really was easier because of my trajectory that I went on that seemed a little chaotic. Nothing was a waste of time. And everything that happened led me to being a better business owner and also attracting the type of clientele I wanted. I'm not the hairdresser who has pink hair and tattoos. And I attract a very professional, high income clientele, which beauty, and they're on the go. They need to look good all the time, like you. And so that was kind of the business model that I really wanted to attract. And so I had to become that. And I think if I had skipped college, I wouldn't have been able to relate to my clients as much as I do now. But then also having the natural talent towards art. And, I don't think people realize that being a hairdresser requires a ton of math when you're formulating colors, because you're working with a lot of different ethnicities, and you have to counsel and contribute different tones. And it's like being an artist. But on the other side, if you want to recreate, like taking you dark and taking light, do I know the chemistry and the makeup of the hair so that I know what that hair can go through, not just I'm just going to bleach it out and pray, which a lot of hairdressers do. So I think for me, I enjoy it more from artistic, but also extremely technical. The one thing is hairdressers, we are people. We love people. Part of what we do behind the chair is really just part of what we do. The rest is we're just hanging out with friends. And even though it's a business, we do develop very personal relationships with our clients. And the last thing we want to do is not please them. And so I think as you get to be a more experienced hairdresser, learning to say, no, I can't give you this is really hard. And sometimes clients, they want what they want and they'll go somewhere else. When their hair breaks off, they come back and then they trust you for life because they knew you said no for a reason. But if we can give the client what they want, of course we want to do it because it's challenging and it's rewarding for us as well,
And you're very much about, because I've met you several times, Lisa, the integrity of the hair.
Yeah.
You don't want to just do what they want. You really want to evaluate and make sure that what they're asking for is something that's going to be, sustainable as well as easy on the hair. You don't want to destroy the hair. It's, a lot of hairdressers just give the clients whatever they want, even if it's not the best interest of the client, right? So that's so
Absolutely.
important. But what I want to know is, how did you evolve to getting your own business? Like, didn't you start out under like a group of people? Like, how did Lisa become Lisa, like in your own element?
And she was a mom and a wife during all this too. Let's not forget. I want to hear how that integrated because I'm sure that's a lot.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I come from a family of hairdressers, and being young and doing your own thing, the last thing you want to do is what your family does, right? I'm going to pave my own way and do my own thing. So when I decided to go to hair school, everything was very natural. It was the one thing I didn't have to work at. I think because of the math, because of the chemistry, because of the other things that I had studied and I loved, I just felt it kind of encompassed everything that I felt I wanted to do on a daily basis with no end game. Like, you're always evolving, you're always growing, you're always getting new clients, you're always challenging yourself. And I think when I was starting out, because my family, all of them own their own salons, I knew I would eventually be a business woman. When I was in college, I also was in business, and I studied, again, different things: marketing, advertising, tax, accounting, everything under the sun, trying to find my thing. And I took more business classes as a hairdresser than the average, because those are the people that I had basically related to for the last 3-4 years, and I missed the business side. So what I did is I started putting things in order, setting up a corporation, setting up a business plan, just like a grad student would, in order to understand what is needed in my industry. We have a very tricky industry. So it's not like when you go into business, you're working with a bunch of people who understand business. A lot of hairdressers, like when I started, came out of high school or didn't graduate high school and fell into hairdressing because they didn't know what else to do. And so I think for someone like me, we're really wanting to educate hairdressers and teach them how to be really successful, where they can own homes and help them with their taxes and help them see the world. So they're not just, buying Starbucks every day and wasting because we get a lot of cash. And so you have all this cash and you have no future. So for me as a businesswoman and as a mother, it's like, how can I guide hairdressers to being successful business owners, even if they're just working behind the chair? And it's harder than it sounds. It's really hard. But so I worked in a salon for 4 years under this guy who's still my mentor. He's amazing. Even if I don't talk to him for 2 years, what he taught me still shows up in my daily reminders on how to be successful. And I worked under him for 4 years, and I just really felt like, okay, it's time for me to leave home and figure something out. And so I switched salons and kind of tried different things on knowing eventually I would open my own salon. So ended up having my children. I had a boy and then a girl, and I had some health issues. And as a hairdresser, we can work 10, 12 hours a day. You don't eat, you don't sit down, you don't take a break, and you're burning the candle at both ends. And it took a toll on my body. And so my body said, time for you to take a break. So even though I had health issues, I continued to work. I had to provide for my family. And I was the breadwinner of the family. I was married and my husband worked, but I just loved it. Like, there's me as a hairdresser and me as a mother, and somewhere in that small realm, there's me as an individual woman. It was really like hairdressing and motherhood were exactly the same importance to me, you know? So it was sort of like a balancing on a tightrope, you know, trying to be everything for everybody, but also super fulfilling because as a hairdresser, you can work when you want, you can work as much as you want, you can work as little as you want. I just have always treated my business like a business, and I worked my schedule all the time so that I could be consistent as a business owner, not as just some hairdresser who might show up and take care of me one day, being on time, you know, really respecting my clients' time, really respecting that they also have a schedule, and that when they come to see me, time is money. And for them to take time out of their day, I have to be on my game in order to provide for them so that we can all go home to our families basically at the end of the day, happy and satisfied, you know? So, yeah.
That's incredible. Was your ex supportive during this time and being the breadwinner and working long hours? How did that balance work?
Absolutely. We went through a lot of different transitions when his best friend was a celebrity hairstylist. And when this guy started out, he used to sleep on Jeff's couch. That's like where he started. And they were young, they were in their teens. And as I watched, you know, as I listened to Jeff, as he watched his friend grow and get on a Bravo TV show and that whole thing. And so he loved the hair industry, and he actually would have been a really great hairdresser himself, but he was an artist as well, and he had a small business. He did leather goods, and having two children, I sort of like put a little fire under his bottom and said, you got to get a job, got to get a job. So he got into the corporate world. And if it wasn't for him working, honestly, I wouldn't have been able to start the business because we needed to care for the family, and we needed to be able to afford the investment of a salon. And I probably would have done it on my own, but it really was important for us to do it together because of the fact when you have a salon and you have people working for you, maybe not everybody thinks this way, but those are also my children, my responsibility. I need to be there for my staff and the support system and all of that. So when I was working a lot, my husband was at home with the kids and, you know, never complained and just really did what he could to balance out when I was missing, you know? So,
But
yeah, that was good.
how long, Lisa, were you working for someone before you then decided to venture into your own salon? Like, how many years were you doing that before you were like, okay, it's time to go? And what made you realize that you wanted to, like, what was the impetus that led you to do the individual salon work, and how long were you there with them before
So
you?
so the guy I started with, his name's Alan Pacheco, and he's amazing. And I was cocktailing in hair school, and I saw him in a restaurant, and he was hanging out with his staff. And I watched his camaraderie and I watched their connection. And I was like, who are you? And he told me, and I said, what do you do? And he said, I'm a hairdresser. I own a salon. And I said, I'm working for you starting in July. I'm getting out of school. And he was like, oh, okay. And sure enough, I showed up and I started working, and I worked with him for 4 years. And then I kind of, like I said, I needed to spread my wings and grow and challenge myself. So I went to another salon, and same thing. But when I moved to the other salon, I went from an employee to an independent contractor, which really is running your own business. And that's when you have the safety net of a salon and being independent. but you also have the responsibilities of being a business owner without the risk factor, without, you know, you don't have the bills to pay, you don't have inventory to do. You're doing a little bit of inventory, but you always have that salon to kind of fall back on. And the salon is still kind of helping you grow. So in both cases, they feed you clients and, you know, you work as a team, but it's kind of like you kind of get your toe wet a little bit just with the business. And then I found like just there's some levels that I wanted to provide for my client that I didn't have control over because it wasn't my salon. So I started to work with, again, like my business plan. What do I want the salon feeling to be like? What do I want my support staff to feel like? And what do I want them to contribute to the business? And then when I bring in stylists, what is the overall feeling? Not so much, and it is talent, but there's a phrase, you're hired for your qualities of what you can provide, your talent or your degree or what you do, but you lose your job or you move on based on personality, right? So for me, it was a matter of how do I find a support system where I've got the personality who loves their clients, who loves what we do, you know, and then put them in as a team and let them kind of be independent, you know, and let them do their thing. Because again, we are very artistically individual. And even if someone does something completely different than I do, doesn't make them unsuccessful. They're just different. And that's why it's so fun for clients to find their hairdresser that they fit with through all the different changes that they go through in life, you know. But I think one thing with a hairdresser is if you can be a chameleon and you have to be different for every single client. Like if I have someone who's a business owner, a man who's high finance, he doesn't want to talk to me. He wants me to get my job done. He needs to get back to work. He doesn't want the fluff. He doesn't want the head massage. He doesn't want any of that. And I always tease, like, sometimes I'll relate to someone else, say, when's your birthday? And they go, no way, you're not one of those people, are you? And I said, well, I'm just curious because it helps me get to know you. And no, I can't believe you're going to ask me my sign. And I'll say, and so he'll say, oh, I'm a Virgo. And I'm like, never be late. Don't change your hairstyle. You want predictability. He goes, okay, now I trust you. I'm just like, I know my clients, you know. So,
That's
but with
so
my,
cool.
yeah. And then with my mom, who is home with her little babies, and this is the one time she's out, she wants a completely different experience. And it's so fun to be able to really help someone not just get their hair done, but have an amazing experience in the salon. And I think that's why Alexandra and I became such good friends, because she's so fun to be with and she likes to change and she also trusts me. So when she makes a suggestion and I tell her what, you know, what we need to do to get there, we work well together, because it's not always just the hairdresser or the client, you know, making those decisions. And you have to really be able to enjoy the process, you
And
know?
trust, right? Trust is a
Yeah.
big thing, right?
Yeah.
It's, you know, I have my master's in social work and it's like you're a therapist in some ways, like you
Right.
have
I was
that
going to say the meme,
interaction.
like your hairdresser is your therapist. It's so true.
Yeah.
Of course, unless you're the businessman, but for everyone else, like a lot of clients like to come in and if like you, mom, you get your hair done right, like treatments like 4 to 6 weeks if you're doing whatever. So if you keep seeing your same clients, life update after life update, and it's so fun. It's like a bond. It's not a chore. Like going to the dentist is a chore, but getting your hair
Right.
done, men,
Right.
some guys don't understand it. I'm like, I love
Right, because they want to know where you left off, what's been going on. And you do. You have to be a people person for the most part to do this. If
Yeah.
you're very reserved, I don't know how you could be a hairdresser. Have you ever come across, did you ever have to fire staff because you just felt like one of your staff members was not personable enough to work,
Mhm.
you know, some
Yeah,
of your clients?
absolutely. And I also have left salons because maybe I didn't fit in, you know, maybe it wasn't the right fit. And, you know, I do think hairdressers, we change a lot. We change salons go in and out of business. And so you're constantly trying to be stable in a very unstable profession. You know, clients come, clients go. And I think with me, with my staff, so I had my salon. Okay, so after I worked for this guy for 4 years, I went as an independent contractor. And I can't remember. I mean, it was a while. It was a long time. So I started hairdressing in 1990. And some of my clients I still do, which is really interesting. The guy I worked for, he also still does a lot of the same people that I used to shampoo in the 90s. And so for me, like, I really liked his business model. I always say to my clients, when you're sitting in my chair, we're getting married and we're going to go through the ins and outs and all the changes of your life. And I'm going to be here for you. And I'm going to do your children, and I'm going to do your children's weddings. And I have. And it's such an amazing experience because, again, we grow up with these people and we have decades of stories and history and connection. So when I decided to open my salon, I had a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I had been putting my business plan together for 6 years. And my family, they finally were like, open your salon. You've done enough. Just do it. And one day I found this location that I just fell in love with, and it was it. It was just the right timing. It was the right things in place. And so I had that salon, which was really my dream salon, for 9 years. And what I found is, because I do work behind the chair full time, it's hard to be a manager, the technician, the marketing and advertising person, the trainer, the visionary, and work full time behind the chair. And I was not going to give up working behind the chair. And I just loved it. So one day I just decided I just didn't want to have a staff and really wanted to not be so stressed and really go back to just enjoying my clients. And so I closed the salon and I went into a little bungalow, and it was just me with my clients. And that's where I kind of felt like that was the best environment for me. I miss working with other hairdressers and I miss camaraderie. But on the other side, I'm so busy when I'm there that I take a lot of classes. I connect with hairdressers outside of work. So I don't really need them around my daily environment. So now I've been on my own since 2013 is when I closed my big salon. And it's been great. It's been great. It's been challenging because, we go through economic ups and downs and, going through a really challenging time coming out of COVID and having our industry just destroyed, like
Shut
picked
down.
on, almost picked on, like,
Yeah.
because we are touching people. And, like you guys were saying, we share things with our clients and we hear whether our clients have cancer, we hear they're getting divorced, we hear they lost a child or a family member or a parent.
True. So true.
We hear things before their friends hear it, because if they're pregnant, we can't do some chemical services and they have to tell us. And so we are so blessed with this private and personal information. And that's trust again, right? And you try to really respect that relationship. And also, I think the other side is sometimes you get too personal. And I've done this myself where they are your clients, they're not your friends. And so when they're sitting in my chair, I have a funny story. I did a consultation with one of my clients, and as she was leaving, I finished up the consultation. We had done the service and I was doing my retail sales and making sure she had everything she needed. And my mother was visiting, and I came to do my mother's hair after this, and she said, "Oh, she was so lovely. Is she a new client?" And I said, "No, I've been doing her hair for 10 years. And she said, "I thought it was the first time you had met her." And I said, that is what I want every client to feel, because I don't want them to go, same thing, go change, whatever. What did it feel like when you first went to the salon? And I think that's why clients change hairdressers, because they lose that. They lose that I'm special. It's just, oh, that's just Joan. She's, she's
Right.
just someone I've been doing for 20 years.
That could be really hard versus I definitely feel like whenever I come in, it's like so lovely. It's so true. Like we always have such great conversations and it's
Mhm.
always like a fun experience, but you're right. It is like always like the first time because it's never old and it's never stale. And we always have such a good time. That is really
And
Right.
also, what resonates with me is my friend who owns her own salon. Her name's Lisa too, and she did my hair for many years, up until just like 2 years ago. I was going to her. It's just that we live so far away, so I then found someone more local. But her salon, she runs it, but she has other workers, and I've seen over the years her business change a lot of uh, division, a lot of separation. Her mother was part owner with her, or help assisted with her, maybe not part owner. I think my friend took it over from her uncle. So her mother was working with her, then her mother retired. And then through the years, she had all these set hairdressers who I've come to know. And every time I'd walk in to see my hairdresser, they would always be like, "Hello, Debbie," and chat with me and so friendly. And my hairdresser, it was like a comedy show, right? Alexander was like a reality TV show, very much from the Bronx, and everybody's like screaming at each other and talking, yelling, and just saying whatever they want. And my friend would always say to me, "All right, Debbie, we'll talk later. I need to focus on my client. I'm giving her my time. I can't monopolize." Like, and she would do it jokingly, but seriously. And the people that she was seeing were a lot of elderly. There were young people, old people, but a lot of them were geriatric based, and some would be more like they really wanted that one-on-one time, because you have to remember a lot of these geriatric clients are widowed. And so for them too, this is their connection. This is their
Yeah.
emotional connection. They're in the nursing home and they're coming out to get their hair done and they want to be able to be special. And what I saw over the years is my hairdresser was so lovely, going to wakes, going to funerals. She was so sad whenever somebody that she knew for so many years had just passed. And I remember her transitioning when they would end up, they were living in a home and now they were in a nursing home, or they were bound to their apartment or house. She would go and make house visits and still does that. So she's very, very connected with these families. So I
Yeah.
can appreciate what you're saying, that it's such an emotional connection. It really is. It's
Yeah.
really, you guys are so important in our lives, right, Alexandra?
I completely
And
agree. Yeah. And
right,
I was going to say something that really stuck with me is Lisa, you said you continue to do education, which I think some hairdressers, when they get into being a seasoned hairdresser, they don't go back to take classes and to learn what's new or a new way to process or whatever you're learning in these classes. I think that's so commendable that Lisa is actually, you go to classes and you still learn and you still engage with these things.
that's right.
Whereas some people your age might be like, oh, that's for the youngins. That's for people right out of beauty school. I know what I'm doing. But that's so great that
Exactly.
you educate yourself and you continue. That's how much you care about your craft. You keep
Right.
wanting to learn new things and go back.
I
Yeah.
really I appreciate that. Yeah, that you said that, because that is true. A lot of people in the industry don't want to, especially if they're old school, they do not want to get advice. They're like, "We know everything. I don't need the newer stuff, the products, whatever." And it sounds like you always want to learn and better yourself and just be up on things, because even you're open to learning more info and not feeling like, "Oh, I know it all and I'm the expert and that's it. I'm shutting it down." It makes you more accessible to your clients, I would imagine, right?
It does. And it keeps you from getting bored doing the same thing. And I would say a couple things. Sometimes I'll take a class, and this is like going back 20 years. And I took a class from a person and I'm watching them teach this class. And I was like, this is the complete opposite of how I would do what I do in the salon. So I talked to myself, as hairdressers, we do, I talk to myself all the time. And I said, listen, why don't you do it their way for 1 week and just try it? Before you make a judgment, just try it. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's kind of weird, but that's what growth is. So then I would do it for a week and I would kind of learn, and then I would kind of take out parts of what I learned and incorporate that. And I was like, that was really good. If I hadn't tried it, I wouldn't have learned a different way of like the French way of cutting hair versus the English way of cutting hair. And on some clients, I'm like, thank God I took that class, because this is the perfect client for me to use that technique on. Or I'll take a class and I can envision the client I want to do this new technique on. And I will call them and say, I can't wait for you to come in. You are going to love what I learned specifically for you. And they're like, oh, I'm so excited, and it's really fun. So, and the other thing you said is we are close with our clients. And I've had clients that I did for 15, 20 years who have passed away, and their families don't notify us. And I don't think people realize that their
Oh,
hairdressers are some of the closest people in their life. As one of
yes.
my clients says, he's so cute, he's my age, and he says, Lisa, you're my longest relationship besides my mother. He goes, and my wife knows it. And I love it because I've been doing his hair probably since we were in our early 20s, and we're both in our mid to late 50s, and it's such an amazing experience. And I think the other thing that we talked about being a client in the salon, someone said this to me, and it's the same thing with going to a restaurant or any service industry or anything that we do, because you're either a buyer or a seller, and we've been on both sides. For all of us are buyers and sellers. And so someone said to me, you have a 10% chance of really making someone upset and choosing not to do business with you. So if I have a new client, I have to see that client 10 times before that 10%. Maybe I'm running late. Maybe it was beyond my control. Maybe I was sick and I had to cancel, or, things that are of my control and things that aren't of my control. But if I'm doing someone for 30 years, think how many times I've had to upset them, or I've had the opportunity to upset them. And hopefully you have enough of a relationship to work through those things where it's like, oh, she made me mad, or she was late, or she didn't hear me today. And then you say, you know what? But I know this is not normal for her, and I'm going to stay with her. And that's such a joy for us, because we're not perfect, and, we will make mistakes. And
I do think that, in my life, and I know Alexander too, there's been times where I've been on vacation in California. I went to you, I trusted you. I was in Rome this year visiting my daughter, got my hair blown out. And it's so interesting when you do those one-time visits, and there
yeah.
is no connection. But yet, even in those one-time visits, I'm wondering, have you ever had a lot of experiences where people have come to you real quickly? They're on, like me, but you don't really know them, like Alexander through me, and it's just a one-time visit. What that experience has been like for you?
Yeah,
One of
it's so we used to, and my son, so we used to work, so it was on Ocean Avenue, and we called it Hotel Row because
Okay.
it was the Lowe's and the Fairmont and all these upper, you know, level hotels. And they would call us last minute, hey, this person's got a wedding, or this person needs this. And so when you're doing someone you don't know, it's it's like it's like getting a new client. But again, you're probably not going to see them again.
Right.
It is so stressful, and it's because you want to people please, and it takes a while to get to know someone's hair. So I think when a client is traveling a lot, if they know their hair really, really well, and clients know their hair. Okay. So when hairdressers say, oh no, I know more than you do. Well, you've been working with your hair for a long time, and it's my job to sort of listen to help me shortcut problems that I could run into. So I had this client come in from New York, and she sat in my, I swear, 25 minutes. And she's like, okay, I go all over the world. This is the mistake they make. This is what they're going to do. And I was like terrified, going, oh my gosh, like she's had so many bad experiences.
Right.
And I just said, okay, I'm going to take all that into consideration, and I'm just going to do my job with the 30 years experience that I have. And I blew out her hair, and she goes, no one has ever done my hair as well as you. And I said, because you told me all the shortcuts and I was listening. It's like if a person tells you they have a cowlick, they have a cowlick.
Right.
Don't ignore it. And so that was really nice. And, I've never seen her again. But it was such a lovely experience to please her, and to
Right.
also let her know she can be safe going to get a blow dry in a salon and have a
Right.
good experience,
Right.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother element, right, Lisa? It came to me, like, I didn't have this question in my mind, But as you're talking, I'm thinking about my one-time experiences where I'm like, on vacation, I just need to have my hair blown out, because you're in a bad place, the weather's, so
Yeah.
it's a different experience, but it can be just as lovely if you have that connection.
Yeah. And I think it's so funny. I had this young French hairdresser who took over the assistant position when I had, graduated onto the floor, and I was working with my client, and he said, "I'm watching all you guys in the salon." He said, "You guys don't know how to blow dry." And I said, "Well, we blow dry." And he goes, "No, no, no. I'm letting you know, you Americans don't know how to blow dry." He said, "You don't know what the nozzle's for. You don't know that." I'm like, "I don't use the nozzle. What is the nozzle for?" And he educated me on the French blow dry. And I'm telling you, it was learning from someone who is just coming to work in the salon. You can learn just as much from a new person if you're open to a person who's been doing it 40, 50 years, because sometimes they have some of the newest information, newest techniques, newest way. And why work harder if someone's going to give you a tip, you know? So that was kind of fun. And so I kind of learned the French hairdressing method, and it definitely helps your blowouts.
So funny.
And
So I'm sorry, Alexandra,
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say Lisa's in a new era now in her business because you've moved your salon to your home and you have the most gorgeous home salon. So I have to think that this adds another element in being a business owner, but now you're a business owner on your own turf. Like I know the salon is yours, but this is your home. So you're inviting clients to your safe space, even though, it's a backyard thing and a whole salon in the garage, but that's a big step too and a huge accomplishment. And I would have to think you got to this point in your life because you're like, you know what, I'm ready to do it my way, my terms. I'm more selective with the clients I take. And this is like my safe space. So what has that been like?
It's so interesting. I take a lot of coaching. I get coached by a lot of professionals. And when I was at my salon just recently, it's been 5.5 years, surviving COVID, closures, open closures. I mean, I thought that was stressful, right? But what I realized was I don't like managing other people or being responsible for other people's business. So I work with a young lady who we compliment. I've always worked with a facialist, and we were both looking for a change. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to have to move to my home location because of the commercial real estate is really tough right now. And I thought, I'm just going to try it. And thanks for COVID for introducing me to my yard. And I created this outdoor space as an emergency. And it is the most lovely, beautiful, relaxing. You hear the birds and the fresh breeze and the sunlight. Doing hair outside is so beautiful. And then California rains kicked in, and we have never had so much rain as we've had the last few years. And it just was not conducive to me working at home. And even though the salon had opened after COVID, a lot of clients requested, "Hey, can I do it at your home salon?" It's like, sure, yeah, if that works out, let's do it. Knowing also that I really respect my business, I never wanted to say, I do hair at home. Like, to me, there was not a separation of home and work. And I created my outdoor space still, but then I created a space in my garage where it looks like a salon. And sometimes my clients will come and say, "What was this before?" And I said, "This is my garage." They're like, "This is a garage?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Wow, this is really beautiful." And it's more of a spa setting. It's more quiet. I can control the light and the noise, and there's nobody else I have to tell to be quiet when I'm really trying to pamper my clients. Or it was, I always tease, it was harder for me to make that decision than having a child, to getting divorced. And it was so stressful because I wanted my business to remain professional. And it's been 5 weeks. It was the greatest decision I have ever made. My clients are happy. They feel cared for. I work around the timing of traffic in LA, which is not easy, but I've been working closer to every day but shorter days. And if a client needs me at 8 o'clock at night because they work and they're traveling, if I feel like I say yes, because I'm here. And
Yeah.
it has been this amazing ability for me to serve my clients at a greater level than I've ever been able to at the same time, taking care of myself,
Yeah.
and it's such a joy. It really is the greatest thing I've ever done.
And you were there, right, Alexandra? You've been
Yes,
to
I've been there. I completely agree. I was like, oh my God, this was a garage. Like it literally looks like a salon. And I love the outside. I love her backyard. I'll never forget when I first went, there's like a hot tub, like, next, it's just such a cool, relaxing place. And this is like the type of backyard I'd want to go and hang out in and like enjoy a Saturday night in. So it's so fun being there, getting your hair done, and then seeing this awesome backyard. It just gives good vibes.
and
Thank you.
you must love it, Lisa. You don't have to go anywhere. You just get up and you're there. You're not like, oh, I have to go home now, deal with the traffic. You're there. I mean, people just
Right.
come to you.
Well, and so I worked in Santa Monica for 35 years, and I've always worked within a few miles of where I started because I never wanted to have to just get a new clientele. I love my clients. So moving home, it was like, okay, COVID was an emergency. And yes, my clients stayed with me, but are they going to stay with me and have to commute, So what I realized was most of my clients, they don't have a problem. By the time they show up, it's so relaxing and it's such a beautiful space. And I'm in a better space that I'm able to, just give them a better experience and not let these outside forces take away from what I'm trying to create that experience to be. And so my friends, they're like, you've just opened up the South Bay, or you've opened up more clients in the neighborhood who have little kids who can't commute to Santa Monica. So my business has actually grown. So my biggest fear was losing clients. And, I think if you trust your heart and you need to do something for yourself, it will be taken care of. You will be provided for. And I always joke, the best thing in my life is my business because it's where I put the most energy in. It is a priority besides my children. And so it's just been wonderful.
That's great. That's wonderful. Has there been any disappointment in your life with hairdressing? Any disappointment with your business? Like, did you have an unrealistic expectation at one point in your life? Maybe when you were younger, or maybe even as you got older, that you thought something would be a different way and you learned from it. It was a learning experience, but it was definitely a disappointment.
I think the hardest thing for me in the business is because I come from a corporate background and more of a regimented experience. Hairdressers are kind of like playful and fly by the seat of their pants and all of that. So I think my relationships with hairdressers has always been really difficult. I connect more with business owners or product owners or educators or kind of like the higher up. So working with other hairdressers for me was like, I didn't know how to just be a hairdresser, I guess. If someone came to talk to me, it's funny, they would say, Lisa, can I have lunch with you and will you help me grow my business? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And I would give them an hour and I would just help them. And then, a couple of weeks, they're like, you don't talk about anything but business. And I'm like, but that's all you ask me about is business, like that's what my blessing is, and it's like, I would love to connect with other hairdressers, but that's been really difficult for me. And I think that's why I do work better on my own, but love hairdressers and wish I could support them in many ways. And when I take classes, I get to meet a lot of people and listen and support them and ask them questions and try to connect in that way. Sometimes disappointing in the salon, you sometimes have a client who may not be as respectful, or you thought they were invested in you and them, and you come to find out that you really are just a hairdresser and that you can be left. And sometimes we think that it's that that we're waiting for the client to choose us. It's like on a dating app, choose me, you know? But it's like, for me to say to a client, I don't think this is working out for me anymore. That was a huge lesson to learn, because I love what I do too much to be miserable or not feel valued or respected as a hairdresser. So that, again, asking a client not to come back has opened up getting more referrals from other clients, you know, instead of me trying to hang on to every single client. You know, when you lose a client, it's very sad. And we think about you guys for years, years. We don't just say we don't think about you, like you're gone. Years we think about you. At least I do.
It makes me think, having the social work background myself, when you go to train for, let's say, years ago or even current, they talk so much about the newest hair products and treatments. Do they give you any type of life lesson, like take a communications class or do any type of training when it comes to the client versus just the logistics of the hair? Because clearly you've mastered it, Lisa. You've nailed it, right, Alexandra? You can attest to it. So is there any type of training that they do for the hairdresser where they encourage you guys to go through this communications of learning or role playing? What do you do if this happens with a client? 'Cause this
No,
is fascinating. No,
no, it's no training whatsoever.
it's fascinating, right, Alexandra? I mean,
It's so true. I guess you either have it or you don't. And maybe that'll show in the longevity of your career.
Well, it's interesting because there are classes out there. And I think that's why I like coaching so much, because coaching is very different than therapy, because coaches tell you flat out what you need to do and you're paying them money, and
right.
they're not necessarily nice and easy. It's, what is your problem? How do you fix it? And you have to be willing to try different things. But because when I came from the corporate background as a young hairdresser, one of the things I liked to do was go to business owners, salon owner classes, because I could understand what the owners were dealing with at a different level that gave me insight that I wouldn't have gotten as a young hairdresser. And then also I did executive training. I continued with my corporate training. And there was a class that I took, and it was the most valuable class that I still use to this day. And it's mirroring, like learning who is your client and how do you connect with them. And it's mirroring your client, talking if they talk, don't talk if they talk fast if they talk fast, talk slow if they talk slow, talk personal if they talk. But if I'm talking personal and that person's clamming up and I don't read that, that is going to change their experience, you know? So when I had my salon, one of the things I really loved is I had a 3-step training program where, you know, we look at our clients in the mirror, and it's weird. It's the weirdest thing for clients. And you stand behind them and hairdressers are touching the hair and they're talking to the client. I'm like, that is so bizarre. So I taught my staff, step in front of the client, talk to their face, don't touch their hair. Don't fidget, like stand in front of them and actually have a consultation with them. Ask them, you know, there's like a 5-step questionnaire that I would have them memorize. And it's a long consultation. You're connecting, you're building rapport, you're building trust, you're getting technical information you need to do your job. And then you make a joint decision whether that you're going to move forward with that. That all takes 15 minutes. And most hairdressers have a 4-minute conversation. Okay, we're going to cut your hair. Okay, see you later. Bye. You know, and they haven't done their due diligence in connecting. When you go to do the service, it is important, but it's not as important as the consultation. And I remember my sister, she used to run my salon. She ran the front, and she said, I would watch you with clients and I would hear the exact same thing that they were telling you. And she said, then you would do the service, the haircut or the color. And she's like, I'm looking at the client. She's like, that's not at all what I heard the client say. And she's like, and the client would say, this is exactly what I wanted. And she's like, how did you get that from what they were saying. And I said, experience of listening. And sometimes clients don't know how to articulate what they're looking for. So you have to take the time to really connect. And sometimes clients will come and say, I want bangs. I want to cut my hair off. And you go, hold on a second. What is going on in your life? Because if I give you bangs, you're going to kill me tomorrow. You know, you're going to be so upset because they are having a bad day, or they broke up with their boyfriend, or they lost their job, you know? And so you have to say, hold on, what's happening? And it is the therapy part that I think is extremely valuable, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite question that my mom's been asking every woman throughout this month is, what do you see for the future of your business? I'm not seeing retirement anytime soon. Is there something you still want to accomplish? Where is your goals and your mindset going forward?
It's so funny because, you know, the one thing I love about hairdressing, or just in business in general, is the fluctuation and the changes in our life. And I think someone had mentioned this on one of the reels, and they said women are very unique. We go through more life changes than men will ever experience between our teen years and, you know, going through puberty, and then watching our bodies change. Men's bodies change, but not like ours. And then going through building our careers and, you know, burning the candle at both ends, trying to compete and getting in the, and then deciding to get married. And that's another change. And then having a baby, and how do you keep your career, or how do you decide not to keep your career? And so as I'm getting closer to, like, not close to retirement, but as I'm getting older and that question comes up a lot, I always joke, I'm going to be 96 cutting hair. I'm barely going to be able to see. And my clients are going to be the same age, so they won't care. And we'll be doing this forever, because as I change, my client changes with me. And that's the thing I think is the most beautiful. I have so many young, new clients, like young teenagers. And it's fun for me to try to relate to them and to connect with them, and have them not see me as my mom's hairdresser. And, you know, so it's changing. But moving home, I am in love. I'm having a romantic relationship with my business all over again, because I am creating something brand new, being in the business for 35 years, you know? So when people say, oh, I've worked at this salon, or I've worked at this corporation, you become stagnant. And I think for me, it's like, I am my own client. So how do I please myself and grow and evolve and change so that I'm fresh and new when my clients who've seen me forever don't see me as the same old experience? You know, my mentor, he said something, and I'm so grateful for the people who I've met in my life. And he said something to me when I was 23 years old. And he said, Lisa, you are going to be very successful in this industry. Do you want to know why? And I was like, sure. He said, because you are consistent. He said, you're not a roller coaster. He said, your personality, you're always sort of like level. He says, you don't talk about going out and getting drunk and partying and you know, drama and all this. He said, you're just like this all the time.
I love it. And let all the viewers know before we let you go, where can they find you if they're in California?
So I have a website, lisadixonsalon.com, and I'm in Westchester, which is just on the outskirts of Santa Monica and Culver City. And they can find me through the website. My phone number is listed, and I do not necessarily take a lot of clients from the website. I'm not from the website, from like, I don't do Instagram. I don't do any of the social media. To me, I want to attract the client that comes to me. I don't want to attract the client that sees something online. And I'm trying to say, when I was a young hairdresser, we didn't have the internet. Coming from corporate background, we did a lot of marketing within our own people. So my clients refer me so much business that I don't really need to do social media.
Right.
And I find when people find people on social media, or if they're written up in a magazine, which they don't do anymore. I don't know if they do that anymore. They like go to the hottest, newest hairdresser, and then next month they go to the next hottest, newest hairdresser, and they're not as loyal. So for me, if I'm going to invest in you trying to be the best hairdresser, I want a long-term commitment, which is why I always say we're getting married. But yeah, so when I do social media, I really want that person to really want to come see me. So yeah, lisadixonsalon.com. It's got my prices, my contact information, and anybody who sees any value in this, I welcome you to my beautiful home.
I love it.
Go to her, go to her.
Go to
and
her,
I
yeah,
will
the best.
Next time I come to LA, I'm gonna come to your beautiful house,
Yay!
and you'll get a haircut there. So thanks.
Yes.
So
Thank you,
great having
Lisa.
you.